Over the past year of making content again, I got a few questions that often come up in the comments of my videos. The top three are usually people asking me to give my updates on the My Pride situation, which I'm not going to look at the end of that series as well as the beginning of the next one unless there is a season 2. Asking if I remember that Balto is a wolf movie, which I explain many times Balto is historically a dog, and why the art of the videos that I make look like it's from the MLP fandom, and if I'm a brony. And my answer to that last one is, whoever said I left the fandom? I was born in this fandom, and I'm not going anywhere. I'll always be a part of the herd, even if I got paws and I'm not a pony. I just haven't looked at MLP recently because I wanted to make this channel examining all types of stories, and the show ended before I made videos again. But when a new generation was finally announced, I was ecstatic, and I decided to go diving back into the MLP world. And I gotta say, this new world has my tail wagging a mile a minute. From the variety of characters and wonderful designs to the small little nods to Gen 4 fans, I'm excited to see where this story is gonna go next week. So, I figured before the series gallops into Netflix, why not make a few predictions for the movie and my hopes for the series to come? So sit back, relax, and join me as I go over my top 5 hopes for My Little Pony: A New Generation. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wolf Tales, where storytelling runs wild. For those of you confused with why I made the change there, I just wanted to make it more inclusive to all types of storytelling, and not just ones found in books. Nothing major, just a little rewording for the future. Not like how Gen 5 is making big changes in the fandom. From the first leaks being released to the internet to everything after the first trailer, Gen 5 has done well in filling in the massive hoofprints left by its predecessor. While I know some Gen 4 fans feel a little uneasy, I honestly love the direction this is going. Nothing gets me more excited than a good story. Well, that and theorizing if the first video I made back on this channel was an indicator. So, as I mentioned prior, I have 5 predictions for the new series coming out I'd love to share with you today. And as my friend in the previous video mentioned, time for this wolf queen of tangents to move on to the real meat of this video. So with all that out of the way, let's kick this video off by going over my top 5 hopes for MLP Gen 5. Starting off with hoping that Hasbro remembers that we have 5 leads, not archetypes. While I did love the main 6 and the adventures they went on, I have to admit, I only really started to enjoy them around Season 5 and onwards. Around this season is when the show seemed less focused on what the girls represented and who the girls were. The first few seasons, the main 6 were categorized into things like the country girl, the wallflower, the jock, the fashionista, the smart girl, and the party girl. Because of this, the character progression and lessons they learned were pretty simple and fit into the typical lesson that the archetype would learn. The fashionista learning about manual labor and getting dirty. The smart girl learning to do things without magic and not overstepping herself onto others. The jock needing to learn not to be as competitive and to hold grudges on less. It was only after Season 5 did I see them cover broader topics like feeling unneeded as siblings grow up, reflecting the actions they did in the past that led to the outcomes of the present, dealing with other races with dignity rather than making them conform to pony society. I honestly think that's why Spike was my favorite character for the longest time. The show never put him into an archetypal character box, they just focused on him being a normal character. So for Hasbro getting a second crack at this world, my hope is that the show will stick to this examination of characters by covering wider topics, not putting them into boxes like the dreamer, the partier, the guy, the rebel, and the wild card. I could easily see Hitch expanded on issues of peer pressure in the movie from his job and doing the right thing, as I could see Pip focusing on possibly not being able to fly ever due to her wings. I'm still betting either that the Pegasi can't fly and use the cliffs or wires to imitate that they have powers, or just that the royal family is trying to make it seem like they can fly. But regardless, MLP had a whole generation to expand out both their lore and their characters. And this winged wolf hopes they won't throw away their shot for this generation to come. Just as I hope the show staff and fans remember to not let Gen 4 dictate this series. While many of us became attached to Gen 4 and some even grew up with it, this series is set in a time way beyond the reach of Gen 4. There's no direct descendants, no aspects of the old society, no alicorn princesses or mythical beings to remember the past well. Nothing to make references to the past on a regular basis. And that, I think, is the best thing the show could have done! As much as it's fun to see things like Legend of Korra show how the generation after took things, by doing that, the show also gives itself a major hurdle to try and overcome, keeping new fans happy and not lost with too many references being thrown at them, while also making old fans feel entertained and recognized with all the references they could put in there. While some shows can work it really well, others suffer greatly from the challenge. Hasbro made the smart move by making all the work very far into the future to allow the series to expand out to new routes while also only having small hints of what's to come. While we have obvious canon father dad over here, I'll get his tombstone ready in a few seconds, seems to know the Guardians of Harmony well, most of the society doesn't or refuses to acknowledge it. This hopefully means that most of the references will be done in the movie and then leave it alone so the rest of the series can branch out. Gen 5 will never be Gen 4, and it shouldn't have to be. Gen 4 had its time and place, and now a new generation will get its chance to shine. Though I do admit they take 1 point from Gen 4 and still have animosity between the 3 pony tribes. Remember how I said I love the later seasons of MLP? Well, one of my favorite storylines was Season 8's opener, School Days. The introduction of monster races into the equestrian schooling system, besides the obvious reason I would like to see more monster races, was incredible to see play out. Yana, Acellus, Silverstream, Smolder, Gallus, and Sandbar were all diverse characters with unique setups and perspectives. Throughout their time, they actively had to break down and face stereotypes others had of their cultures and species. It was a fresh and wonderful take on pony society, and one I love to see explored. So when I heard that the new generation was already fractured by the different pony races, I got really excited. My hope is that they will continue this trend of looking into these darker topics and dig in deep to the aspects of the prejudices that the tribes have. Maybe we'll see some actual racism and stereotypes expanded on in this new generation's movie and series like in Heartswarming Eve. We already see propaganda posters in movies to the Pegasi and Unicorn. We already see the fear amongst the tribes about being invaded. Heck, stereotypes are being even hinted at in each of the kingdoms. So who's to say that one movie's events can really sway everyone in a whole world? Maybe there are some events after the movie that will still cause mistrust and hurdles before one can make a truly real harmonic society. Maybe the main 5 will become ambassadors for all the tribes, but face tons of backlash and anger from the other tribes as they try to figure this all out. Heck, maybe even a villain group will rise up and work to try and take down this main 5 like what happened in Kipo Season 3. Regardless, this idea of exploring prejudice and hate that the tribes have for each other is just way too good an opportunity for Hasbro to pass up. Just as how it would be crazy for them to pass up an idea of putting a villain in the movie, but one that is more than their standard 2 types of villains. Hasbro is famous for having usually 2 kinds of villains in their work: the big bad mustache twirlers and the deceitfully sweet upstarts. The big bads are usually villains to be villainous and hold power of great proportions, then they want to control the world. Simple as that. The sweet upstarts get a little bit more tricky, with usually they are people who use their charismas to trick others and get what they want. They're not big and powerful, but they can make very devastating effects. While these can be fun villains to have in the show once in a while, by having these be the only two kinds of villains that usually are shown in the show, viewers can see what they have done with their villains and easily map out what other villains will do in the story and see any surprises the show wants to make from a mile away. Cozy Glow was an obvious villain from the start, as she shares many similarities with Chrysalis and her changelings by seeming sweet in the beginning to others and then tricking them later on. Tarek was a clear sign for his villainous intent when comparing to Discord by gathering up a lot of power and manipulating people as he went. The only villains who could be considered a wild card in the show I've seen is Stygian, but he could be considered a big bad with a shadow pony form like Nightmare Moon is with Luna. I'd love to see Hasbro really expand out and make like a hero turned villain, or a villain who is bored and wants to watch the world burn, or see a villain who sees all of this harmony as an almost unharmonious aspect, that the idea of unity is unnatural. In the case of this movie, I think they're going to go for a latter part, as a manipulator sowing seeds of doubt into the community. Someone with the authority to do so, while also being able to hide in the shadows. Which is why, if I had to pick anyone that this movie could put as the villain role, my money's on Sprout. Not only does it seem out of place that a seemingly background pony has a large VA role that's being played and lots of advertisement features, it would make sense for an Earth pony to be the villain this time. In Generation 4, we all heard the jokes that what can an Earth pony do that the other tribes can't run circles around? Heck, most OCs were not Earth ponies, but one of the other tribes. The most notable Earth ponies in the canon of the show had to have supernatural skills to stand out, and we even had fall weather friends to see just what a pair of wings can do when facing against the Earth ponies. Examining the trailer, we see that Earth ponies seem to be happy and full of life while the other tribes are suffering depressed. Honestly, I'm not surprised they're like this. Think about it. With no magic in the world, everyone is in a sense at the same power level as an Earth pony, and have to readjust to this new way of life just to get by. While Earth ponies are well adapted for a setting without magic and already advanced themselves to the powerhouse tribe amongst the three. So an Earth pony villain could justify it as, we're the privileged few now. Why give it up for others to be happy? Why unite the tribes and go back to being laughed at and mocked at when we could rise above all the other ponies and take over? While I do think Alphabetto, Queen Haven, and Phyllis are in a way like the leaders of the tribes and holders of the MacGuffin, which I'm betting do god dang nothing, I see them more as antagonists and not villains. Antagonists, remember, are things that can get in the hero's way, while a villain is actively trying to do villainous intent and harm. I could see these leaders as being uneasy for change and think that they're better off alone, but see reason in time. Sprout, on the other hand, I think will plant seeds of doubt, which will sprout mistrust and full-on war amongst the three tribes. Heck, Hitch even seems very apprehensive to trust the other tribes, and perhaps it could be part of his journey to learn to break away from his views and peer pressure, to separate himself from the toxic mindset and embrace kindness that he sees. This could be done by standing up against Sprout, or, with how we've seen these two, realize that Sprout isn't a true friend and stop forgiving his actions. This could lead to the 5 new friends realizing that the magic was deep within them and not in some material possession, and embracing each other and connect to the theme of unity and acceptance I think Gen 5 is going for. I also hope they don't immediately try to redeem and forgive Sprout, and that the pony will either become a reoccurring villain or have a long road to recovery and forgiveness ahead of him. It would open up a wide world of possibilities for the show to take, just like how my final hope for the series is we see more than just one country in this gen's run. One of the appeals that I had for the Gen 4 movie was the fact it hinted about finally exploring lands beyond Equestria. When I saw we barely explored any part outside Equestria and only really reached the outer limits of the continent, however, I was thoroughly disappointed. I kept thinking how cool it would have been to really go out and see the world, see mythical creatures beyond our standard ones. And I kept thinking, what if we did see in the show Sokora's homeland, the Alicorn origin land, or heck, even where Discord came from? Now that a new generation has come up and is using the pre-existing world of Equestria, we could see them quickly catching up on what has been explored in the world and go beyond what we saw in Gen 4. Explore in depth into new cultures, lands, and mythics that surround the world, as well as how they reacted to magic being lost to ponykind. Truly fulfill the promise that the Gen 4 movie gave us. Heck, maybe we'll even get to finally see a world map of this whole place instead of just a country map to examine. Maybe we'll see evolution in the mythics or better ranges for characters to express themselves. Regardless, my hopes are high that this generation will skyrocket past the last generation and go beyond our expectations. But what do you think? Will this season be better or worse than Gen 4? Which character do you love the most? I'm honestly tied between Sunny and Izzy. And who do you think will be the villain in this upcoming movie? Tell me in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe to help the channel grow. I can't believe I've almost been doing this for 1 year, and honestly, I've had a blast doing it. As many challenges have come up and honestly have been draining, it's been incredible seeing all of you like these videos and help me keep going. So a big thank you to each and every one of you. And hopefully, I'll still be making videos so long as you keep wanting to see them. As a heads up for people who are interested, because there are holidays like Christmas and Halloween coming up, I'll be making my videos at the end of the month since we only do 1 video a month, and I want to make sure that we have videos themed around those holidays. But for now, this has been Silver Starling. See you next time you want to run with the pack! Also, just because there's a winged Pomeranian doesn't mean I'm a Cloud Puff. My kind is actually called...